Unit 6, Lesson 2.
Hey guys, welcome back to Unit 6, Caring for Individuals and Families, Lesson 2, Your Responsibility in Caring for Children. So our learning goals for this lesson will be to identify how to be a positive role model for children, as well as identifying key skills in caring for children. So children form their first relationships usually with the primary caregivers or parents. Other family members give the care and support that provide the foundation for lifelong family bonds. The physical needs of children are met, where their intellectual, emotional, and social development are enhanced as a result. Remember, everything is interconnected. As a caregiver, you must possess a certain combination of characteristics. So, for example, empathy is the ability to understand others. You must also be resourceful, and you must have knowledge about child development, which then becomes more easy to overcome caregiving challenges more confidently. Also, you must be realistic in your expectations of yourself and others. It's important to communicate effectively, which is the key to developing good relationships with children. Also, sharing activities and experiences while communicating at a child's level is also extremely crucial. And children must feel that they are being listened to. It's important to use I messages to maintain self-esteem, and through your actions, you must mean what you're saying. Usually, interaction with children can involve problems and conflicts. For example, managing relationships with very young children is always difficult due to their lack of knowledge and their inability to understand things. There may also be personality issues, but children need to be protected as well as educated. They should have a safe environment to grow, explore, thrive, and develop their skills. It's usually up to adults to prevent a potentially unsafe situation which involves children. So it's important to guide children into making the right decisions and set limits to unmanageable things. Individuals develop their own approach to raising and caring for children, and this is based on the amount of knowledge that they have, the values that they have, and sometimes the way that they were raised. Some people choose to raise children in the same way they were raised. Others vow to choose a completely different parenting style due to past experiences. Discipline is the process by which children are guided to behave in acceptable ways, and the ultimate goal is to teach children self-discipline. Self-discipline must be promoted, and by doing this you can set a good example. Children often learn through imitation, and role models must behave in ways that they would like their children to behave. It's also important to praise good behavior when promoting self-discipline. So try to catch a child doing something good and let them know that you caught them. Laugh with them. It gives them a message that good behavior actually gets noticed, and it's more likely for the child to repeat it in the future. Also, it's important to set and enforce limits. So provide children with a safe framework within which to operate. Restrictive limits are often necessary for very young children. Older children, however, require very few limits if they can demonstrate responsibility and proper self-discipline. Also, it's important to actively correct misbehavior. It helps children constructively understand the consequences of their behavior. This can include warnings or simple explanations, but do not ever physically abuse a child. Provide them with logical consequences.
Hey everyone, I am Peter from Top Think, and today we're going to learn about the secret to building self-discipline. Now, let's begin. When you think about people with exceptional self-discipline, you probably picture martial artists and professional athletes, people who have practiced the same thing for years until they've completely mastered it. But self-discipline is about more than just training and competition. In fact, many of the most disciplined individuals are just regular people who have gradually developed enough self-control to accomplish their goals. Whether you want to start your own company, lose weight, or just stop watching so much TV, self-discipline is an incredibly useful skill that keeps you motivated, clear-headed, and focused on your objective. But what exactly is the secret to building self-discipline? Despite what you might have seen in movies, you don't have to meditate on a mountaintop or wax an old man's car a dozen times. These kinds of extremes, while entertaining, don't actually work because time and consistency are essential for anyone hoping to live a more disciplined life. So, the real key to developing self-discipline is moderation. Doing something in moderation means having the power to stop yourself when you've had enough. If you want to have a more controlled diet or reduce the time you spend playing video games, you shouldn't try to suddenly make extreme changes to your lifestyle. Instead, focus on moderating your behavior, reducing your bad habits little by little to develop the kind of self-discipline that will last a lifetime. So how do you put all of this into practice? Here are 7 strategies you can use to master self-discipline. Number 1. Find your weaknesses. No matter what kind of bad habits you have, the first and most important step toward becoming a more disciplined person is identifying and accepting your weaknesses. The simple truth is that everyone in the world has a weakness for something, whether it's eating junk food, drinking too much coffee, or spending money you don't have. While some weaknesses are more destructive than others, building self-discipline isn't about getting rid of those weaknesses, but learning how to control them. Many people never even get to this stage because they can't accept how little control they have over their own actions. This kind of denial can lead to addiction, so it's important that you address these issues before they take over your life. For many people, the idea of moderation is much less intimidating than cutting yourself off completely. So instead of focusing about which bad habits you need to remove, think about which ones you'd like to lessen. Number 2, create easy habits. On your road to becoming a more disciplined person, you're going to develop a set of new and improved habits, but it isn't going to happen overnight. Imagine you're trying to lose 20 pounds. You can't just wake up one morning and decide it's time for a 30-minute run when you haven't worked out in years. You're going to end up exhausted, sore, and unmotivated, so you should start slow and work up towards your goal over time. Plan out more manageable, easier workouts that leave you feeling optimistic and proud of yourself. Remember that the goal isn't to lose all the weight in one day, but to create healthier habits that you genuinely enjoy doing, even after you've reached your ultimate goal. Number 3, use rewards. Positive reinforcement is a great way to make sure that your new habits stick around, so don't be afraid to reward yourself for improving. In the same way that you give a dog a treat when they sit, people are more likely to behave a certain way when they know there's a reward on the line. Rewards will also motivate them to work harder by giving them something positive to look forward to. This is especially useful for people who are having a hard time getting their new habits started because they haven't developed enough self-discipline to push through the beginning stages. Say you want to cut out sugary foods from your diet, but are struggling to keep it up. By using a reward system, you can focus all of your attention on the cookie or brownie that's waiting for you at the end of the day, making it easier to avoid breaking your diet otherwise. This way, you are always in control of your habits and impulses instead of letting them control you. Number 4, personal standards. Disciplined people often motivate themselves to keep pushing by strictly adhering to a set of standards for their own life. Standards are basically personal limits, which lay out the absolute minimum that you're willing to accept for yourself. But these kinds of boundaries only work if you are willing to hold yourself accountable when you break them. This is where most people struggle because they end up setting really high standards that are impossible to meet consistently. It's important to remember that standards and goals are not the same thing. While goals are things you work and reach for over time, you should realistically be able to meet your standards every single day. Writers, for example, might aim to write 3,000 words a day, but have a standard of only 2,000. Why are personal standards so useful? Most people tend to have an all or nothing approach to their goals. Either they can get it done immediately or just give up. So, by setting standards, you give yourself a reason to keep working even when you aren't actually able to achieve your goal. Number 5, look ahead. After you've identified what your weaknesses are, it's important that you realize when you're putting yourself in dangerous situations. Imagine you're trying to limit how much fast food you eat. You used to eat a burger and fries for lunch every day, but have decided to switch over to salads. So would it be a good idea to eat your salad inside a McDonald's? My point is that you should recognize situations where your weaknesses might get the best of you and avoid them. If you want to stop getting distracted by your phone at work, for example, turn it onto airplane mode at the beginning of the day or leave your phone in your bag to make sure you couldn't get distracted even if you wanted to. Of course, there are certain times when it's impossible to avoid your weaknesses, so make it easier on yourself by planning ahead. Figure out what you're going to do to avoid falling back into old habits and find a way to reward yourself for resisting the temptation. This kind of planning not only helps you stay on track, but also gives you a sense of control over your life. Number 6, set alarms. Time is a slippery slope when it comes to bad habits. If you tend to watch too much TV, play too many video games, or waste hours on social media, you know how easy it is to justify spending a few more minutes to complete a mission or watch the rest of an episode. But a few minutes can easily turn into a few hours, and before you know it, you've used up the whole night. So how can you use moderation to make sure this doesn't keep happening? Most people tend to focus on removing the TV and video games, getting rid of them even though they weren't the problem in the first place. The real problem is how much time you spend on them. In other words, you can keep playing the games you love as long as you stay within a set time limit. Next time you start up any game, set an alarm for 1 hour and make sure you turn the volume all the way up. The goal here is to force yourself to physically acknowledge when you've hit your limit and stop there. If you want to take it one step further, put your alarm across the room so that you have to put the controller down and stand up to turn it off. That short walk across the room gives you the chance to reset and consider your priorities instead of mindlessly playing for another hour. Number 7, make adjustments. Every person's path towards developing self-discipline is unique. Sure, there are a lot of very specific plans out there which have worked wonders for other people, but that doesn't necessarily mean they'll do the same things for you. Elon Musk might have developed self-discipline and boosted his productivity by planning every moment of every day, but other just as successful people might find this approach suffocating and unproductive. So instead of just copying what your favorite celebrity is doing, you should build a routine that is designed for your individual goals, strengths, and weaknesses. If you know you're significantly more energetic at night, don't force yourself to work out first thing in the morning just because other disciplined people prefer it that way. As long as you are consistently setting and achieving goals, you'll develop the kind of unbreakable self-discipline that you're looking for. Thank you for watching Top Think.
So, families with children usually provide safety from harm. They provide food, clothing, and shelter to their children and socialize children to be contributing members of their society. The age in which children begin to care for their own needs, the need of the family, and the responsibility varies. So, in some cultures today and throughout history, children begin to work at a very young age. Societies where hunting or agriculture is the primary source of survival, children are often seen as economic necessities within the family. However, in industrial societies, such as Canada, children depend on their caregivers, and it often takes longer for children to develop skills, and there's nothing wrong with that. So now we're going to be looking over the practical issues in childcare. As with any organization with many functions, families serve in a management capacity. So parents and caregivers play the role of both leaders and managers. Good management skills are required in order to be effective parents. You must provide physical, intellectual, emotional, and social development for children. And both human and non-human resources are required. So there are skills that are necessary for parenting and babysitting. For example, holding an infant, bathing a baby, changing diapers, providing limits, stimulating brain development, teaching skills and knowledge, preparing healthy meals, etc. So with knowledge and skills, parents and caregivers need to know what to expect from a child at each stage of development. If a child is not developing in a certain area, you must be able to recognize the potential problem. And by doing this, you can bring attention to a doctor or a professional. The first skills that you should learn are holding, bathing, and feeding an infant. But while doing all of this, emotional support is always required. Time and energy has to be put towards caring for children because many tasks must be completed within a limited time frame. Remember, there are only 24 hours in one day. The number of children that you have can affect the amount of time it would take to care for them, also combined with outside work. So, sharing tasks with others can help save time and energy. Some tasks may seem like a waste of time, such as playing with children, but these tasks are extremely crucial. So playing with children allows for building skills, such as building with blocks. This can also enhance their self-confidence and self-esteem in a safe situation. Then, as children grow older, they do not need as much time and energy, which is why you must teach them how to care for themselves from a very young age. However, timely tasks such as driving them to a soccer game are often necessary since they can't drive by themselves. Anyways, with raising children, money is a key resource. Children cost a lot to feed, clothe, and care for. Although every family's financial resources are different, all families are responsible for providing their children with the basic necessities, such as nutritious food, adequate clothing, and a safe and intellectually stimulating environment. Each family will then decide how they spend money on raising their children. Homemade baby food and meals are much more healthy and economical than the commercial ones. Also, clothing is a variable expense. Do you want hand-me-downs? Do you want highest designer choices? Do you want to make clothing? Do you have time to make clothing? Do you want to buy clothes in bulk? Healthy relationships in the presence of the child are essential to their emotional development. Financial issues within a family are one of the lead causes of frictional relationships, and financial well-being requires a planning ahead of time. So within a society, there are many community resources which are available to families who need them. Families have many community resources to assist them with childcare while they're working outside the home. This can include the healthcare system in Canada, religious, healthcare, and community recreational organizations, babysitters, nannies, nutritionists, you name it. As children are vulnerable to many accidents and hazards, products require many safety precautions. Toys are one of the major examples of this, because small parts in toys should be labeled and kept out of reach from toddlers. It's important to read all safety messages and avoid toys with sharp points or edges. This can be preventing the risk of choking or swallowing. So with household furnishings, bunk beds can seriously injure children or even be fatal. So it's important that you make sure that the top bunk has a guard tailed and that the ladder is securely attached. Do not let children play on bunk beds. This should not be used with children under the age of 6. Also, clothing is more dangerous than we think. Flammable sleepwear can be a serious hazard. Snug-fitting clothing is less likely to catch fire if it comes near a potential flame. So it's important to closely supervise children around fireplaces, stoves, and candles. And try to choose fabrics for children such as polyester, because cotton burns very quickly. So now I'm going to have you guys complete the